Welcome to another episode of Preparing for the Unexpected. I'm your host, Alex Fullick, and as always, we like to talk about things related to disaster recovery, business continuity, resilience, anything that's relatable to those topics, and anything that helps you, your organization, or your community prepare for, respond to, and overcome adverse situations. If you'd like to be a guest on the show, please feel free, reach out. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm the only Alex Fullick there, so I'm really easy to find, and I do return every message I get. Well, actually, before I jump into today's show, I guess I better get to a couple of announcements before I forget. Thank you to everyone at DRJ last week, the 11th to 14th of October. Fantastic time. I really enjoyed the Master of Ceremonies role, and James and I are going to talk about that a little later. November 3rd to 4th, I am presenting at the BCI World Virtual Conference. I am also facilitating a panel discussion and 2 networking discussions. And December 1st to 2nd at the Continuity and Resilience Today conference, which is now virtual. I know you saw me for the longest time crossing my fingers that I would be able to just travel an hour down the road in person, but no, that's virtual. But I am speaking there. And there's a chance I might be doing a few other things there as well. But I don't know yet, hasn't been confirmed. Anyway, let's jump to today. It's time for This Week in Business Continuity with my guest, James Green. James, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Alex. How are you?
I'm great. After
Excellent.
Last week at DRJ, I'm doing great. Yourself, I'm going to assume is doing good because you're smiling.
Yes, and I was actually smiling because as you and I have had a running joke for 4 years now that I follow you around the world. And I'm happy to share with you that since Continuity and Resilience Today will be virtual, I will be there in a speaking capacity. So I think I'm at every conference you're at this year, all virtual. So
And originally you weren't, right?
Correct.
Yeah, so it kind of broke the chain of following, and now that it's virtual,
Yep.
you are.
Now that it's virtual, I'm back on the Alex Fullick bandwagon.
Yeah,
So.
now I'm really starting to believe you are following me now. So let's jump into what we experienced last week, DRJ.
Absolutely.
How'd it go?
I want to jump into one thing ahead of time. In full disclosure, you and I always talk about other companies and other people's business continuity incidents.
Oh, yeah.
So you and I were actually supposed to record this video 2 weeks ago. And, in full transparency to your audience, I had a business continuity incident. You and I were in the thick of things, having another great conversation as always. All of a sudden, my internet started to lag. So I jumped from one provider to another. That didn't work. I jumped to a hotspot. That didn't work. I jumped to my cell phone, chewing data on that. That didn't work. And so I will freely admit to the entire world and to your entire audience, I only have 4 methods of connecting to the internet. I don't have anything beyond a tertiary plan. And so we had to cancel and reschedule. So I'm happy to be here today. I'm not sure how I had so many points of failure, but such is our profession, I guess.
Yeah, and I've still got the original audio file. Maybe for fun, I'll just kind of play it, tack it on to the end of this video. Here's our original talk where we were coming from back then, just in case we missed any points this week.
So it just goes to show, you and I stand here and we take shots at other people, but it happens to us too. It happens to everyone. So and I understand you had a little BC incident earlier today.
I did. I was actually speaking with colleagues of yours from the Resilience think tank, Mark Hoffman and Andreas Bryant. And while we were talking, I lost connection and froze twice. Luckily, I was able to get in right away, but without any issues. But still, I had the same thing. Like, oh no, now it's my turn. What's going on? So we went a little longer than we normally would have, and I have a lot of editing to do now for the recording.
Nice. Well, we're both here, and with that, so let's talk about. We wrapped up DRJ Fall last week. You were the MC. I think is that the first time you have MC'd a whole conference, or have you had that role before?
I know that was the very first time. I got an email from Bob Arnold at DRJ asking, hey, I'm stuck for an MC. Would you consider stepping in? And I went, I didn't really think about it. I just went, yeah, sure. Not really,
Absolutely.
not sure what I was getting into, but I said, sure, why not? And as time got closer, I was very, very nervous. As I used the phrase, my knees were knocking like crazy, because it's very difficult to talk like this, knowing there's 1,000 people on the other side.
Correct.
And the first time you do that is really daunting. So it was the very first time I did it. I think the nerves showed at the beginning, but I got comfortable with it as things got moving, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I really hope I get to do that again, if not with DRJ, but with anybody. I really get to do that.
Exactly. And now I can call you MC Alex, so you have a rapper name. We're good to go.
Back to the 80s.
That's right. I'll put some parachute pants on for our next episode. So what were your thoughts on another DRJ Fall? You've been to many, another virtual conference. I'd like to talk first about what you thought about this conference, and then I've got some thoughts about the future of all conferences, maybe.
What I found different this year in conversations is that and we've had this conversation before too, the challenge with buy-in, and that was at every conference, it's in every trade magazine, it's on every blog, trying to get buy-in. And I've noticed that the narrative has changed from trying to get buy-in to we have buy-in, now we're trying to show value. So it seems to have moved over. That was one thing I noticed. The other was a lot more focus on people.
Yes.
Which I know both you and I really agree on as well. I found there was a lot more focus on people resiliency, the people building plans rather than the plan itself. So I noticed that was changing. And one thing that I did find with some people, because I tried to attend as many sessions as I could, even if it was for 5 minutes, that there's still some ambiguity or some sort of mix-up as to what operational resiliency is and organizational resilience. Some people seem to have used those terms interchangeably, and they're not the same thing. And I know we've talked about that here too. And one that frustrated me, somebody said, there is software you can buy that'll help your organization become organizationally, resilient. And I just about jumped through my camera here, like, no, organizational resiliency is about people and the culture that leadership creates. Software is not going to do that. So, but anyway, those were the big key ones that jumped out at me. How about you?
Yeah, absolutely. I have worked at several software vendors in our space, and I have always told clients and prospects, and I'll say it here now, that software does not replace people. Software doesn't make you automatically resilient. There's no magic button. Software helps your program. It automates your program, but you have to have a program to start with. And certainly, to your point, software has nothing to do with culture. I wish it did. I wish there was a magic BC resilience crisis management culture program. You and I would be rich selling that to people. All they have to do is download and install it, and they're permanent resilient. I think your thought about people, we did spend more time talking about people at this conference than I think any conference in the last 2 years. And, part of that goes back to some other terms and buzzwords we've heard, the great resignation, all these things, but they're starting to play out. I think 4% of the United States workforce left their jobs in September. That's a huge number, and that number is going to grow. And to your point, organizations are realizing that your program is really only as strong as the person leading it and the person sponsoring it. And if you lose either one of those people or both, what are you left with? Your plans, your paper binders, your documents really mean nothing without the people. And I'm glad that our colleagues are starting to recognize that. And then, there's a lot of pressure, I think, over the last 12 months, maybe for the last 5 to 10 years, a company's never experienced an incident. Management's like, well, why should we even do this? But now they're like, we want to do this, but You have to show ROI. You have to be accountable. Where's the money going? What am I getting for it? And that's a stressful, a lot of us have been knocking on the door for years saying, give us a bag of cash. And there's strings that come with that bag. And, I'm working with some companies right now where people are stressed out and they're like, well, I want to make sure that I spend this money and invest this money that I can show ROI so I don't get in trouble, this time next year. And that's for a lot of us in our profession, that's a new, having line item budget responsibility is not something we've had previously, because maybe the budget was zero or the budget was negligible, so nobody even cared. And now you're seeing risk and resilience professionals get hefty, significant budgets, but that means you've got to answer for them this time next year. And that's that'll be interesting to see how a lot of our colleagues navigate through that the next 12 months.
Yeah, we've been asking for that for years and years and years since Y2K, really, right?
And now you've got it.
Now we got it. So now we have to show, okay, this is, and I think part of that is metrics. And I do recall, I haven't seen it yet, but I hope I get to see it soon, is David Lindsted's show about, his session about metrics. And
yes,
that's going to come into play now, because that's going to help us show, here's our return on investment. Here's all the daily incidents we had. Here's how much money we saved by having these processes in place, type thing. And that's how you can relate it all, right? All the metrics. And it's not, you have a plan, tick. That's not going to cut it anymore.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to cut it in our profession. And I don't think it's going to cut it in the conferences in our profession or in any profession, really. I was speaking to a vendor last week and they said, prior to 2019, we really thought if we didn't exhibit and sponsor at X conference, we wouldn't get customers. And they said, funny thing, we've had no in-person conferences in 2 years. Their sales have gone up. So now they're struggling, looking at their 2022 budget. Should we even go to a conference as a sponsor anymore? Should we be a title sponsor? Should we be an exhibitor? So I think that's going to change. And on the attendee side, I was working with another organization where, their BC program manager said, hey, for the last 2 years, my line item budget for travel has been zero. And now I want to put that number back. What do you think? And honestly, I told them, good luck.
Yeah.
Right. You have something at zero for a couple of years and to try to put it back, it's going to be tough.
Things went up in the right direction at zero.
It's going to be tough. So I think conferences as a profession, you want to talk about a BC incident, are going to radically change. Sponsors are looking for more sophisticated ROI. And, I'm sure we've all been to a conference where they have that little letter you can print off and send to your boss. Here's why I should go to, Alex Fest. That's not going to cut it anymore. They want to know specifically what you're bringing back to the organization. And I think attendance is going to go down next year in a lot of professions. And I think sponsors are going to move some of their money around. It's going to be interesting. What do you think? You do a lot of these conferences. You attend all the same ones I do, obviously. What are your thoughts? What will we be saying about conferences this time next year?
I agree with you. I don't think conferences are going to be the same thing. They're not going to be these big, massive hotel resorts with 2,000 attendees in person. That's not going to happen anymore, I don't think. Especially when, and using DRJ as an example, because they did a great job at this, having so many different ways of interacting with sponsors and exhibitors that, you could just pop in, you could talk to them. They had demonstrations all online with people around the world. Because I noticed there were people from across Europe. There was somebody from Saudi Arabia, Brazil. Chris Miller was from Australia. She was there. So there, and Philippines, there were people from around the globe. A normal in-person conference, and I'll stick with DRJ, and I'm not knocking anything, probably wouldn't have got many of those people because of the cost that's associated with it. So from the attendee side, staying virtual, you've got a bigger audience now. And it's, I don't know, I can't remember the actual cost of it, but let's say it's 20-25% of the normal cost without adding hotels and plane and food and all that kind of stuff on top of it. So for companies, okay, yeah, you can go to a conference, it's virtual, check when you're not doing anything, check your email type thing, and you're all doing it from home, yet you're getting that same experience. Same thing with vendors. They now, they're being opened up to bigger audiences and potential sales because they've got the people from Brazil, Europe, Philippines, Australia, et cetera, et cetera. So it's different for them now too. Why do I have to go there in person and spend all these thousands of dollars to rent a booth and set up and bring people there when I can do it, from, the back of our building, so to speak, and keep the cost down and yet have a wider audience for me to display my wares. So
Yeah.
I think conferences are going to change, and I'm not surprised that CRT eventually became virtual. I thought they would, but I talked to Dan, the facilitator, and he told me about it. He goes, yeah, we finally are. So it doesn't surprise me. I think if some of these key conferences have all these different avenues for people to discuss, meet vendors, exhibitors, see demonstrations, if they have all these different avenues available, well, then that's even better than going in person because there's more there.
Yeah, I think we're going to see the during an actual event, the quantity of learning and networking goes up, but where I would ask people to pause is I find the quality goes down. So when I attend a conference in person, I am focused on that conference. When I attend a virtual conference, I'm still expected to check my email, log into this call, talk to this client. You're scattered. So I think that's one thing. Maybe the quantity of sessions you can attend goes up, but possibly the quality of retention goes down. And then the other thing I worry about long-term, you do meet people before and after a session. You do meet people in those coffee breaks. It's like a very hackneyed thing, but it works. I've met a lot of people that I'm close to professionally, bumping into them at a meal, in the hall over coffee. And I just wonder, new people coming into our profession, are they going to find the quality mentors? Are they going to find that network of people that they can bounce ideas off of when they're implementing parts of their program? I think that part is going to be greatly diminished as we go to full virtual conferences.
That's a good point. Because the same thing happens to me too. I can walk down the hallway and say, hey, hi, James, hi, whoever, and that's not going to happen virtually.
Yeah.
Unless, excuse me, unless we can come up with some way to recreate that kind of experience, if things are virtual. But yeah, that is, there is something missing when you don't have that person-to-person, in-person contact. Yeah.
And I've also found as a speaker too, as you know, in person and virtual, people will ask you questions during your session, which is great. But in person, people will come up to you afterwards and say, hey, I'm really struggling with this thing in my program or in my career or in my profession. Can we talk about that? I haven't had any of that virtually the last 2 years. So again, those quality questions, those quality answers are going down. And I think those are the kind of things people need to push for. Here's why I need to attend conferences. And I think you may see the rise of regional conferences. So it may be hard, me in Tampa trying to convince an employer I need to go to Las Vegas or London, or I'm trying to think of some cities we've been at the last few years, as opposed to Atlanta or Miami or somewhere, New Orleans, something closer. I think there's an opportunity for some of those organizations that do regional conferences to really grab attendees next year.
Maybe there's an opportunity for groups like BCI, was it ACP, Association of Contingency Planners, right?
Yeah.
Okay, they're not up in Canada, so that's why I want to make sure I remember them correctly. And DRI and all the local chapters is to maybe see if they can put on something, and work with a vendor. And maybe that's the way a vendor gets involved as well. Okay, a more targeted approach. And if they can have them so that they are in person, then to address your points, people can ask questions. They can meet their colleagues and ask questions that maybe they're embarrassed to have other people read if it's virtual, or hear if it's in person, where, James, can I talk to you over here for a moment? That kind of a thing, that can't happen virtually.
Yeah, and I can tell you, as if I put my vendor hat back on, I like those small events better. So I come to your organization and we sponsor with your local ACP, BCI, EIEIO chapter. We sponsor a breakfast or a lunch with 15 to 20 people. The cost to me as a vendor is $1,000, and I get to meet 20 quality people who are all, targeted professionals and have meaningful conversations. I, as a vendor, go to a major conference and spend 10, 20, 50, 75, $100,000 plus 20 people in the booth. And half the people in the booth are just there to grab swag. So it's much easier to show, again, as a vendor, the ROI to me. And I know I'm a contrarian in this space. I would rather support and sponsor small local events. And
you mentioned swag. That's another cost saving for vendors too, right then and there.
Yeah. That being said, I still need some pens. So if there's a vendor out there who can send me 2 or 3 pens, if not, I'm going to have to go and buy some, I guess. I don't even know.
I am down to my last 2 JW Marriott pens from Phoenix. I'm down to the last 2.
I was just looking at mine right now. It's a local storage facility. So I'm officially out of risk vendor pens. It's a bold new era.
Yeah, I'm going to have to do a first purchase in years and go to the local office supply store. On that note, we've come to the end of our first segment, This Week in Business Continuity with James Green, and we'll be right back. Welcome back. This Week in Business Continuity with James Green. James, just to continue on from the DRJ talk, I attended a couple of your sessions, and in one of them, you mentioned something to the effect of business continuity managers or professionals are like MacGyver.
Yes.
What did you kind of mean by that?
So
it caught my attention.
Well, I'm glad I said one thing smart last week, so that makes me happy. But during the town hall, we were talking about, we asked a question to the panelists regarding, most business continuity programs are run by a party of one. So what are effective ways to run a program as a one-person shop? And so I just instantly thought of MacGyver, which, a great TV show. Half your audience probably wasn't even born when it was on, but guys like you and I remember MacGyver would get into these situations and he was expected to fix everything, 1, by himself, and 2, with only the resources he had in his pocket. So I liken it to a business continuity program manager who's a party of one, and they have no budget. So you have to use freeware, SharePoint, Excel, just like MacGyver would seem to get out of a bomb-proof, blast-proof safe room with a roll of duct tape and a quarter and, a piece of gum. Yeah. So I think I was just meaning we really have to be innovative and creative to be successful in our field, because prior to this year, like we talked about, in the first segment, we didn't have budget. So your boss would be like, great, go fix that. And here's a coupon to McDonald's. So I like to always kind of use that, MacGyver mindset of you're a one-person shop and you have no budget and you have to get out of the room before you lose your job, basically.
It's almost a little part of the definition of resilience, right? You got to be adaptable to what you got, and sometimes it's a rubber band and a paper clip. So you take it from there. What can you do?
So, Alex, one of the things that I said in my DRJ session last week that got the most attention and started melting down my chat was I spoke about brand erosion and my very strong feelings that brand erosion needs to be something that's paid attention to by business continuity. I know this caught your ear, and I've had a couple of people ask me about brand erosion and business continuity. So I know we've got a couple of examples. I'd like to read through one of them if you want to go through that, and I'd love to hear what the audience thinks. So there is a digital media company called Ozzy, OZY, and yes, they have been sued by Ozzy Osbourne and won their lawsuit, but they were founded in 2013, and their chief operating officer impersonated a gentleman called Alex Piper, who is YouTube's head of unscripted programming. And he impersonated Mr. Piper on a potential investor call with Goldman Sachs. Goldman Sachs thought it was kind of weird that he was the only person to join audio, not video, not in person. So they reached out to the real Alex Piper and said, hey, were you just on a call with us and Ozzy? And they said no. And so the New York Times reported all of this on September 26th. Here's where, to me, problems start to commence from a BC standpoint. On October 1st, the Ozzy CEO came out and said, Friday, October 1st, we're shutting down the company. And then over the weekend, there were all these articles and all these uproar. October 4th, he came back the next Monday and said, hey, I talked to the board. We're not shutting down. So my question to you is this a business continuity event in your eyes?
Well, it's certainly some sort of a crisis management event, that's for sure. As an investor, I wouldn't know what to believe anymore. And as an employee, because I know on the Friday, that October 1st date, employees were told they were shutting down, they were going to be out of a job. And then Monday morning, it was a different story. So the stress they went through, that's going to also interrupt, a lot of some of the existing relationships you have with partners and vendors, your employees already. So yeah, business continuity would eventually, they may not be initially there, but at some point they're going to be, because people are going to say, I'm getting conflicting stories. Should I still be sending you this? What's going on? Well, yeah, you got to send us that because we still need to do this and that. We don't have workarounds, or even employees turning around. Should we stop doing some things? Because we're getting questions from so many people now. They have to start now prioritizing because all of the uncertainty that's been created. So I think business continuity would get involved. It may not be right initially, but I think they would be. It would start off, well, the way it started off was almost as a crisis management thing immediately. Exactly. But if you've got a crisis management, business continuity has to be involved there somewhere.
Exactly. I'm actually speaking about part of this at BCI World next month, because I feel that to me, the definition of brand erosion, it's serious risk to the long-term viability or health of the company. And to me, that sounds exactly like crisis management and business continuity, just from a different lens. If you are a manufacturing company and your main facility burns down, that is a serious risk that affects the long-term viability of your company. But what we saw with Ozzy, with the CEO coming out and saying, hey, we're shutting down because this PR crisis, this media crisis is so bad that it's affected the long-term viability of the company. To me, that is crisis management. To me, that is business continuity. And I'm asking our colleagues to get involved in those types of things earlier, and not just as a post-mortem during bankruptcy.
Yeah, if I was a partner or an investor, I'd be wondering, Monday they're closing down. Okay, fine, let's pivot and go in this direction. Then 3 days later, oh no, we're staying open. Yeah, I would start wondering, do I really need to want to be in business with you anymore? Exactly. Because I don't know what you're going to say in and a few more days.
Yeah.
So,
And just like we see again with that manufacturing example, if a company can't produce whatever it is long term, their customers will find someone else to do it, and their vendors will sell to someone else. Same thing here, to your point, Alex. If your investors don't trust you, your partners don't trust you, your employees don't trust you, your customers, they will replace you. And to me, that is a crisis that becomes a business continuity event.
yeah, yeah. And even if you are struggling to stay in business, your employees are going to see what's the old expression? Rats always
Leave a
escape
sinking
their surrounding
ship.
shit. Yeah. And that's exactly what's going to happen. Employees are going to see things aren't going well, and they're going to start looking around themselves. And these other companies, the competitors, are going to start poaching them.
Well, yeah, because think about it, if you and I worked at a company and on Friday, our boss said, we're shutting down our doors. And then on Monday, the boss said, I was just kidding. We're going to stay open. You and I are interviewing along that week, along with everyone. And to your point, our competitors are going to start, looking us up on LinkedIn and say, oh, I bet you James is willing for a change. I'm sure Alex doesn't want to be unexpectedly dumped. And yeah, you're going to see, their quality people get poached.
Yep. And that's exactly what will happen, because as you say, that's what I would feel. I wouldn't trust the CEO or whoever it was that said that on Friday, and to say something different on Monday. You no longer have you're not a leader to me anymore. I don't want to follow you anymore, because I don't know where you're going.
And we've seen that with a lot of companies over the last 2 years because of COVID. Employees have lost trust in their leadership because leadership clearly it's okay that people didn't know what they were doing at the start of the pandemic. No one did.
Yeah.
But some companies made it very clear they did not care about the health and safety of their employees. And once you lose that trust, you don't get it back. And that's why you are seeing people take advantage of other opportunities. And again, to me, that becomes a business continuity incident. If all of your employees keep leaving, what's your succession plan when 40% of your company quits?
Yeah. And you mentioned at the very beginning, what was it? 4% of American workers are quitting their jobs.
Yeah. In 1 month.
And that's a part of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
In 1 month. There is that happening up here as well. Because for some people, they were told initially, you're not essential. So you're furloughed or whatever the case, whatever happened, you're not going back to work, or you're not working from home, whatever the case may be. You're now at home. Nobody's hiring. Everyone's in a hiring freeze because of what's going on. Eventually you're called back. Okay, come back. You're working whatever. Now there's supply chains. So now people are turning around going, I'm not going through this again. You told me I wasn't valuable. Okay, I put up with it once. Now it might happen again.
Yeah.
No, I got to look for something different. I need something more security. And I even listened to the radio this morning, and there was, yesterday morning, and there was a gentleman representing a large restaurant company here in Canada, owns a few of the brands up here. And he said, well, we want to get employees back so that we can show once again that there is security in the hospitality industry. Well, I'll tell you this. I was in the hospitality industry for 13 years. Kitchen manager, bartender, server, general manager, company trainer. I did everything in a restaurant you could do. There is no such thing as security in a restaurant.
Yes.
Because anything can happen from lunchtime to dinner time. You can have one super busy, one dead. The next day is super busy and your current day is dead. You have holidays, nobody goes out to eat, and all of a sudden you've got little staff and you're swamped. There is no security in there, because anything can happen. A bad table can treat you like garbage, and you end up getting fired. There's no security. That's why a lot of people aren't going back to these jobs anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. And you and I have talked about that many times, that people in the service and hospitality industries for years have been told, if you don't like it, go work somewhere else. And now they are. And now I saw another local restaurant to me the other day said, we are now closed 3 days a week because we don't have staff.
Yep.
So again, that becomes a business continuity issue. You had, I thought, a great example of something that was a brand issue that was potentially a business continuity or crisis management concern.
I did. Oh, yes,
Yes, you did.
I forgot what it was there for a second. The Facebook whistleblower.
Yes.
That was rather interesting because I can't help but think, well, now what do? Facebook gets a lot of flack anyway.
Yes.
About everything, and they're so big, there's no way they cannot attract, scrutiny. And I was wondering, okay, so in those cases, it's usually an external source trying to find out information, pointing things out. What happens when you've got a whistleblower now who turns around and is right there on the front lines and knows exactly how things are running, sitting in front of a judiciary committee? I think it was a judiciary or some sort of an oversight committee.
Yeah.
Letting all your secrets out. They know how to do this. They do have this. They do this. They don't do that. It's like, how do you manage that? And I really haven't seen a proper response to that. I've seen a lot of complaints and insults, but I haven't seen a proper response. We need to address these concerns of the whistleblower. So what do you do when your crisis is actually created from within, not externally?
Yeah, it's interesting. In their case, they've done nothing. So you have, for those of you in your audience outside the United States, this whistleblower, data scientist, I believe, first went on 60 Minutes, which is a longtime news program in the United States that is considered very credible, regardless of your political affiliation or beliefs. And then that following week, she did testify in front of the United States Congress, to your point of, here's exactly how Facebook has figured out that negative activity and anger creates more engagement with the members and with the users. So they work to make sure you're more upset and angry to stay on their platform longer. And I haven't seen any damage control. But to me, again, this is a brand issue that becomes a crisis. You've seen some companies start to say they're no longer going to advertise on Facebook because of this. They're no longer going to partner with Facebook because of this. There's some people who say, I won't work there. I will choose not to work there. I'm going to leave there. So you're seeing a drain of customers, of employees, of talent, of partners. That, again, I keep saying this over and over again, the serious long-term viability of the company, this is going to become, it went from a brand issue to a crisis to, I think, will become a business continuity issue. And they clearly, to your point, have not responded well to criticism from the media or in particular the US government in the best of times. And here they just seem to be doing no damage control. And I think, I think we should be in those conversations in some capacity, because this does become, it goes from a social media issue to a crisis to a business continuity issue. We're all just watching as bystanders.
Yeah, and to your point, it's going to erode the brand, and your company's going to be backsliding.
Yeah.
Sometimes I wonder if it's just the ignorance of leadership who thinks, we're so big, you can't break us. What's the expression? Too big to fail? Too
big to fail. Which every company is until they're not.
Exactly.
Right. So.
And I mentioned in our break, Congress is one of those committees for U.S. Congress has asked Jeff Bezos to prove some of the points he has said in front of their committees about Amazon.
Yes.
Where Amazon has been questioned about some of their products and how they market them by taking other people's stuff, their marketing materials and things, and then mixing it around, for themselves. So they go after the same markets at cheaper prices to kind of shut the competitors out. And he's now been asked, you've told us you don't do all these practices, prove it. Prove by giving us a copy of the policies you say exist. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with them, because that's going to be the same thing, brand erosion for Amazon. And look how big Amazon is as well.
Yeah, it's, it's one thing to say something on social media or an ad campaign. It's another in front of any governmental body. You better be able to prove
Mhm.
whatever it is you're saying. But yeah, I think you're seeing some of these titans of the current industry, Facebook, Amazon, are having these crises that, could lead to business continuity event. Sears was the king of retailers in the United States until they didn't exist anymore. And just because Amazon is number one now, or Facebook is very popular now, companies make bad decisions, lead to crisis, and all of a sudden you're Kodak camera. And who carries around a film camera anymore? Very
That's
few
right.
people.
And banks have gone under for the same things. There Sears, you use Sears as an example. They used to be a really reputable company here in Canada as well.
Yes.
They're gone here as well. So which is a shame, because at one time they were really, really good.
Yes.
They had quality stuff, and whatever the decisions they made, just went downhill really quick. But on that, we've come to the end of our second segment. We are talking with James Green, This Week in Business Continuity. We'll be right back. Welcome back. We are talking with James Green, This Week in Business Continuity. James, to stay on the Facebook topic a little bit, recently, within the last couple of weeks, Facebook and Instagram had that outage that was, 6, 7, 8 hours, somewhere around there,
Yes.
around the world. Now, in our last show, we talked about BC in the cloud and putting our plans up in the cloud and everything else. Facebook and Instagram, these are some of the tools that people use to market, hire, communicate, crisis management, call trees, all these kind of things, and they were out. So I'm wondering, will this be a wake-up call to many people?
Sadly, I don't think it will, but it should be. So a lot of people, they were making jokes last week. Oh, so how are we going to watch our cat videos? Because Facebook and Instagram and WhatsApp are down. But if you look at some of the applications that they use, Facebook has a corporate branded version, Workspace or Workplace. A lot of companies put all of their documents and communications on there. And I spoke to one company that basically said we were dead in the water that day. There is a lot of universities in the United States and Canada that use WhatsApp as their primary communication source. And there's a lot of countries around the world where WhatsApp is the leading communication source. So to your point, if we were using WhatsApp as our call tree or how to create comms and it goes down, what do we do? And, there's a lot of companies are like, oh, my vendor's in the cloud, so I'm safe. But you have to look at what happens if they're not. And I will say, when I have run exercises for companies where I take their major vendor out, I get a lot of pushback, because the company will say to me, that's never, ever gonna happen. And the best one I ever did, I wish I could name names, but I would get sued into oblivion. I was pushing very hard with a company to do an exercise where their major vendor went down, and I was told that's never going to happen. They finally relented to allow us to do that exercise. And that morning, that major vendor had a significant outage. So it does happen. Like you said, you would think that Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp as a trifecta would have very robust BC and DR, and companies don't. And companies who just think that major vendors will never go down, you're too big to fail, right? We've heard that story forever. That company will fail you at some point, and you need to look at that possibility to at least have some understanding of what are you going to do when that happens, or are you just going to close your doors until they open back up?
Yeah, no one and nothing is impervious to some sort of an interruption or some sort of a adverse situation. You know, big trees can burn down, you know, mountains fall, you know, and an expression from a song I like, one day every pebble hits the beach. You know, doesn't matter how long it takes, it's going to be there. You know, so the comments that vendor won't go down, there won't be any issues. No, no, no. That if you're making that thought right there, you're kind of telling us what's going to happen to you when anything happens. You know,
Yeah,
you're
that's
not
one of the
prepared.
reasons I like to study the fall of Lehman Brothers, you know, in 2007, 2008. Part of the reason that the United States Treasury Department didn't help them was they couldn't fathom that Lehman Brothers, a very old, prestigious institution, could be in so much trouble that they would actually close their doors.
Mhm.
And they did. And that kind of kicked off the Great Recession and had a ripple effect throughout the world. So yeah, I would encourage, you know, everyone, your audience, everyone, you always need to be thinking about those what if. You don't need to be doom and gloom and focused on it 24/7, chicken little, but big companies do have outages.
Mhm.
It's been proven.
And there's the expression, you know, don't put all your eggs in one basket. You know, and to your point, as you were saying with your client, they were putting all their eggs in one basket. Nothing will ever happen to that client when something did.
Yeah.
And then what? You know, now what do you do? And you already pointed out another company said they were dead in the water. So, you know, you just because you're in the cloud, it doesn't mean you're fully 100% protected. You're not. You've just moved risk over there. You know?
Yeah. My friend has a great saying. He always used to say the cloud is just servers that you can't see. So
Yeah.
there's still data is still going through hardware somewhere at some point. Absolutely.
Yeah, and a backhoe, you know, 3 blocks away can still dig up those core, you know, those.
Yes.
And I've had that happen at a data center. Thank goodness there was a backup to go around it. But yeah, they were. We had no idea, but someone down the street was doing some renovations, and a backhoe came along, dug up power cords, and affected our data center. Luckily, everything was set up that it instantly switched over to reroute. So, you know, about a second interruption, and that was it. But you know, we had to investigate that and figure out that it was construction that had nothing to do with us. We didn't even know the people who were in that building, you know, the company. So, you know, we
That's
still got
amazing.
impacted. So, well, let's move on to our last topic, the kind of things that we're doing right now and what we're reading. And, you know, I know for the last week, both of us were busy neck deep with DRJ. But, you know, if you've had some time, what kind of things are you doing now?
Well, I'm reading one book. I'm going to turn off the virtual background so that we can see me, maybe.
There we go.
Because I need everyone to see the book I'm
Oh.
reading. I never thought I would read a book about BIAs, but you wrote a book, Planning and Performing the Business Impact Assessment, which I am reading. This is the only book about BIAs I will ever read. This is a great book. Very excited for you. I would recommend everyone to read this book. And that is, like you said, with DRJ, that's the one thing I have on my calendar at the moment.
Oh, well, thank you for that and the kind words. I do appreciate that. That's for sure. But things have been a little bit crazier at this end because I've got a stack that I've been looking at recently. Disasterology. You recommended this. I read it.
Yes, I did.
And Dr. Montano is actually going to be a guest on the show.
Excellent.
I'm
That's
looking
such
forward
a
to
great book.
It was. I can't wait to talk to her. I really can't wait.
She has a very strong voice. One of the best academics I know in the space. And if you're on the lighter side, once a month, she and one of her colleagues do a disaster at the movies where you can watch a movie with them and follow along and critique it from a disaster and BC
Oh, really?
perspective. It's fantastic. Yeah.
That would be fun. But luckily, I'm glad she's going to be on the show. The other one is Business Continuity Management, a practical guide. Practical Guide to Organizational Resilience and ISO 22301 by James Krask. He is also going to be on the show.
I see a lot of sticky notes on that book you've got there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the key points that I wanted to talk about. And then you get to books like this where I've got dog-eared like crazy. I dog-eared books like crazy. The next one I've finished. Actually, I got through it rather quickly. The Mindful Leader. 7 Practices for Transforming Your Leadership, Your Organization, and Your Life with Michael Bunting. He is going to be a guest. Actually, I'm interviewing him on Wednesday. We're talking.
I'm noticing a pattern here. Yeah.
Yeah. I read a lot, and anything that grabs my attention is like, hey, I want to talk to you.
Love it.
I just finished James Kerr, Legacy, what the All Blacks can teach us about the business of life. And for anyone who doesn't know, the All Blacks are New Zealand's rugby team.
Yes.
To put it very simply, it's rugby's a religion down there.
Yes, it is.
And the All Blacks are arguably the best team, consistent team ever. So that's an interesting book. And right now I'm reading the 10 Lessons for a Post-Pandemic World by CNN's Fareed Zakaria.
Nice.
So and any other time I have, I'm working on book number 9. So
excellent.
That's kind of what I've been doing in the last little while. And of course,
fantastic.
Talking to friends and recording episodes. So that's it for me.
MC Alex, I love it.
Oh yeah, MC Alex. But I'm not singing, no way. Or rapping.
Oh my
James,
goodness.
Always a pleasure to chat with you. Thank you once again. And I'm sure, by the time we talk in a few weeks, there will be a whole myriad of other things that have occurred that we need to touch on.
I'm sure there will be. Thanks, Alex. Thanks for having me on as always.
No problem. My pleasure. And to everyone watching and listening, stay prepared, everybody. If you liked that video, thumbs up. If you didn't like that video, thumbs down. But leave a message and let me know what your thoughts are. If you'd like to be a guest on the show to talk about something related to business continuity, disaster management, COVID, personal well-being, anything that's relatable to those subjects, you can reach me through my LinkedIn profile, which is in the video description. And of course, don't forget to subscribe. In the meantime, stay prepared, everybody.